Don't you think part of that is also the ritual involved in both?
Very much so. Very much so. So tea and wine are both part of the mortar, part of the cement that keeps human relationships together.
The tea trade became fierce, it seems, in reading your book. It became a huge industry that was tightly controlled for a long time. Talk about that.
Well, once the Westerners, we people of European extraction are the Westerners, and once we discovered this product of the Far East, which the English called far-fetched and dear-bought, which it certainly was. It took 6 months at least for a ship to get from China to Europe, bearing tea or anything else. They went crazy for tea, just as they went crazy for porcelain and silk and lacquerware. Well, tea soon outstripped all the other Asian imports. They could never get enough of it, and there were various companies that belonged to the countries where they had been formed. The Dutch East India Company, the English East India Company. All these guys were trying to corner the market, to exercise a monopoly over this tea trade. And they were quite effective at doing so, right up until the 1830s. So that was the beginning of the trade in our harmless tea. It amounted to purchasing in Europe, selling in Europe something that went down the drain. And you know what they bought it with in Asia finally, when they were requiring huge amounts of tea every year?
Was it opium?
Opium.
Tell the audience about that. That just stunned me, between the opium and the silver transactions.
Yeah, so it was quite ingenious and, of course, totally wicked, and is responsible for many of the problems that we have with narcotics today. It started in the late 1700s when the British realized that they had nothing to trade to the Chinese. The Chinese didn't want British woolens or anything else the British produced. They just wanted silver. And the word for silver in Chinese entered our language through the tea trade. The word's cash. We all know what cash is, and that's thanks to the tea trade. The Chinese didn't want anything but cash if you wanted to buy their tea. But the problem was China was a long way away from England, and anything could happen to a shipload of silver on its way to China. So it was better if you just could let the silver stay there. The way they decided to do this, Kim, was to take opium from India, which the British controlled, and allow it to be sold for cash in China. And the cash they then used to buy the tea that they were going to ship home to England. And so the silver just stayed where it was, circulating between the opium purchases and the tea purchases. No need to carry it around the world. Of course, unfortunately, this required more and more opium addicts in China, just as more and more people fell in love with tea in Europe.
I think it was also interesting that the Dutch were so prominent in making tea available to Europe and were never known for that. It's not known all over the world that the Dutch were instrumental in making tea available in Europe.
Isn't that interesting indeed? They somehow have been denied the credit that is due them for all the things that Holland did. When you look at the paintings of the 1600s, look at I'm a great lover of the paintings of Vermeer, and all of those interiors that he paints. You see oriental carpets, you see maps on the walls, you see women wearing satins and silks. All of these things came from or had to do with the China trade. So a great deal of the first porcelain, the first tea, the first everything else that we experienced came through Holland.
And also Russia. It was interesting to find out that in 1796, Russia was consuming over 6,000 camel loads of tea per year and over 3.5 million pounds. Russia got that tea from where? From Holland?
No, they got it overland from China. That's where the camel came in. They got it on the border of Mongolia and China, where there was a trading post, the only one that the Chinese allowed the Russians to do business in. And once you had packed up your caravan, you had something like, I think, 4,000 miles to trek across Siberia to get it home to Moscow.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a different tea trade from the seaborne tea trade that went on with Holland, and first Holland, and then England and Holland and everybody else.
What do you think was the prominent input that created the market for tea, the attraction to it? What do you think was the instrumental piece? How did the market get created from your view?
Well, there are a lot of parallels between the original market and the present-day one. One word that should come first is health. You see, water was unsafe to drink throughout most of Europe. However, if you were going to boil that water and use it to make tea, you had just sterilized the water. And so people gradually discovered that you don't get sick if you drink tea instead of just having a drink of water whenever you're thirsty. That was a big thing, just as health is today a big reason that Americans are finally acquiring a taste for tea.
But so much of the tea that Americans are exposed to, as you relay in your book, is not the top teas, is not the best teas. I like that you explained what many of the top-level teas are. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, yes, I can. We don't want everybody to know what we have found out, Kim. There's not nearly enough of the very top-quality tea to go around.
I won't tell.
That's right. We have to
we'll keep that between us.
Between ourselves and a few tens of thousands of would-be tea lovers who are new tea lovers like all of us in this country. The fact is, a tea bush hibernates through the winter months and then begins to wake up in the spring and starts to put out flush. That's what they call the new growth. And it is this new growth which is plucked and then manufactured into tea. Well, there are only certain months in the course of that year when the tea flush is going to be ideal. However, the bush will keep putting out leaf all year round until it's ready to go back into hibernation at the end of the following autumn. Somebody has to drink all of that tea. Let it not be thee and me, Kim. There are large companies which sell mass market, mass market tea bags, and this tea is probably good enough. It's no better than it ought to be, but it seems to have satisfied millions. So there you have it. If you can content yourself with what's available in the supermarket, look no further. However, if you do look further, you find that you have entered a world unknown to people who drink the tea bag mass market product.
I hear that tea bags are really not good for you, actually. To be using them is not even healthy for you.
I doubt that. I think that it probably has a lot of health benefits, even poor quality tea, but it doesn't benefit your taste. Once you know how good tea truly can be, it's very difficult to settle for something that's less good.
What do you think of that Wu Yi tea?
That's the mountain range in China, in Fujian province, where the very best oolongs come from.